Today we're going to take a Roland W-30. Two things you need: small Phillips screwdriver, a larger Phillips screwdriver, and a couple of tubs to put your screws into, and other little pieces just to make sure that you don't get everything mixed up. First job, volume slider. Take the knob off, put it in a thing here. Don't worry about your encoders, they would come off later, you'll see. Piece of foam underneath it. You can see this one's got a damaged keyboard, and we're going to cover that whilst we're doing it. Flip the whole thing over, being very careful. You don't break off the sliders on the back, or the knobs off the back, sorry. And you also don't drop it onto the pitch bender. Screws which need to come out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 on the bottom. Yeah, and then across this part here, almost along the edge, there are another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws there. Okay, so off we go. Some of these screws are a little bit weird, well, for me anyway, because I think the last guy who took it apart and put it back together did it with an electric screwdriver, which in my opinion is a really bad idea, because you can seriously put too much effort into these screws and end up stripping them out. Yeah, once all the screws out are across there and across the whole of the base, you should then be able to lift it free. Best thing to do at that point is get it like that, put a finger at either end and tip the back off. And safely to one side, and behold. Okay, things we got in here: power supply, audio board, main board, floppy drive, pitch bender. This is obviously the key bed, and this is obviously the after-touch board here. Next thing we need to do is we need to take out the main boards, the audio board, and disconnect the keyboard, etc., etc., to expose the key panel at the front so that we can change out some of the switches. Now, I've seen people start taking the screws out down here. Not necessary at all. Leave them in. Okay, they're perfect. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws here. 2 on the audio board, 3 on the main board, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the main board along the back here. 1, 2 on the audio board. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out all the ones at the back first. All these screws are of a similar length, they're just of a different colour generally. So the ones that are inside the machine are usually silver or like a bronze colour. The ones that are on the outside are usually a black colour or been anodised black. And the ones that are along back here, before you disconnect anything else, disconnect the aftertouch here by using the plug and holding it down. Yeah, don't pull on the wires. Okay, on here you've got the power supply. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Right down at this end. Is that where my hand is? Yeah. Right down this end you can see this is where the floppy drive is. You've got the ribbon cable going in. Make a note of where the red tag is on that one, because that's the number 1 cable that needs to go back in the right way. And also the power for the floppy drive as well. Make sure that you make a note of that. Always take photographs along the way if you're unsure. 1 and then 2. Okay, nothing else we can reach at the moment. Next step, down here you'll find there's a little plate which is sat across the top of the power supply. On the back side here there are 2 screws. Needs to be disconnected. Okay, we don't drop the screws down the side, or well in this case it doesn't matter, but certainly when it's going back together it's important you don't drop them. That plate comes off, there is like that, so it comes off and it sits on there like that. Not so easy with my big fat hands, unfortunately. Well, not fat, they're paws. They're not hands, they're actually paws. I think I was a bear in a previous life. So there's 2 screws here, and that will loosen up the entire audio board. And then the 3 screws here. You may find that these ones going across here are short screws in comparison to the other ones which are long screws. Let's have a look. That's the difference. I don't know if we can see that in the camera. One's long, one's short. There's no need for those to be of any length, so it's fine. Okay, the reason we took that plate off is here you will find a lead which goes to the power supply. That needs to come off. That is connected to the main board, and that is the main power supply from everything through to here. Next thing, lift the lift the main board up like that. Just tip it back a little bit. You will find 2 blue wires which are going to stop you moving it too far, which come from the main switch panel at the front. They will disconnect quite easily. They are both a different size, yeah, so you can't get them into the wrong socket when you put them back. If you physically look at them, they are a different length, so it's very, very difficult to get them in the wrong way round. Yeah. Once you've got it to there, you can lean it back a bit further. Yeah. This is the one which goes to the display. Here. Again, you can disconnect that. Yeah. It says by the side of it, to LCD. Yeah. And then on the other side of it, here. Ooh, there we go. Don't think this one has got no. Okay. Yeah. This has been left out for now because this is the other one which goes to the backlight, and that is normally connected here next to this tin can, but it had been left off because the backlight is no good. So it would just be left disconnected at this point. I'm guessing that's the problem we're going to solve in a little while. Alright, those two are free. The bender lever, wires come from that, look, there. That will disconnect here on this orange plug down here, which is directly next to the one for the backlight. No problems. Here we have the encoders. There's a wire there which goes to the encoders. Again, that will disconnect at the main board there, quite happily. Connections to the audio board. One here, one here. Again, two plugs white, different lengths. You can't get them confused. There's only two sockets that they'll go into there. Down the bottom here, you will have two green sockets, or two green plugs going into white sockets. These again need to be disconnected. They can be fiddly. If they're putting up a bit of a fight, don't pull too hard and break the wires. Again, both of those wires, or both of those plugs, are a different length. You can't get them too confused. You go from there, it says from analog. Yeah. The other ones go on to these ones here. Yeah. Can't really get them wrong. Okay. So with all of those wires disconnected, your audio board then becomes completely free. You can just take it out and place it to one side. Nothing on there that really is going to get damaged by electrostatic too much. It's there's no CPUs or anything like that. It's all passive component stuff, so it's relatively safe. Just don't put it somewhere where next to a Van de Graaff generator. Okay, once you've got that to there, you'll see that this was the wire that went down to here, so that is now free. So the only thing we've now got connected is the keyboard. Again, these just disconnect here. Pull them by the plug, not by the wires. Yeah. There's three different colours. If you want to, just mark your board. Yeah. White, red, yellow. Okay. That can go to one side. Obviously be careful where you put this one. This could suffer from electrostatic discharge, but they're pretty robust. Just don't put it down on a nylon carpet or something like that. Put it down on your wooden bench somewhere. Yeah, and don't leave it there for weeks and weeks and on end. Or if you're going to wrap it up and have to put it in storage, put it somewhere where it's out of harm's way. Basically, put it on an electrostatic bed. At this point here, you can see on the board, yeah, there's the various things. So this section here is the inverter for the backlight. This chip here is the one which controls the keypads, and well, it's the I/O gate for the buttons on the front of the machine, basically. So that one takes all the signals from all these buttons here. So if you find you've got various buttons that aren't working, and I had a unit that didn't do that, this chip can sometimes partially fail, and it's driven by this this crystal oscillator circuit here. And this crystal oscillator circuit is fed into there. It's then divided by 3, and it runs both it runs this chip, it runs that chip, and it runs that chip, and it runs all the I/O buses. If that chip goes bad, the whole board goes dead, basically, and you just get a load of lights lighting up in random fashions, and it looks like it never initializes, and it's a nightmare. And there's nothing you can do about it. I cannot find that chip for love and money. Yeah, this chip here, that's the one which looks at the keyboard array here and takes the signals from that, and then feeds it all back through into the processor, which is here. This is the processor. That's your ROMs, so that tells you your version number. I've never seen a version number other than 103. Yeah, they're odd and they're even. The chips down the bottom here, it says on the board odd and even there. If ever you have to change those out for any reason, make sure you get them in the right way around. Yeah, These are your this here is your SCSI chip. Yeah? If your machine hasn't got one in, you got no SCSI. And normally what you'll find is on the back here there'll be a little connector on the back, a little plate on the back here which will say option. Yeah, if it isn't fitted. If you take it, if you buy a machine and it hasn't got one on, hasn't got a plate which says option on it there, and that you can see that plug, you're gonna have to take it apart like this to see if you've actually got that chip in there. Because in a lot of cases somebody will just take that off and go, look, I've got SCSI, but in reality they haven't. So the only time you do have SCSI is when you've got this chip here. I haven't used SCSI yet. Possibly I will do in the future. Anyhow, let's put that to one side. Okay, now we're going to remove the key bed. We have to do that in order for us to get access to the floppy drive if we wanted to change it out for a Gotek, and also if we need to repair the keyboard, which we do in this case. Okay, so obviously nothing's on. Yeah, there will be a large screw here, or a slightly different screw which is like a machine thread and not like a wood screw type thread. Yeah, if you can see that. And that is where your earths coming off your plug socket go to. So it earths the frame. And then here you will find some others. Depending on whether it's been apart and put back together by someone else, I found that this screw, this screw, this screw and this screw are normally machine screws and not like self-tapping like type screws. Or they should be. If someone's taken it apart and put it back together before, you may find that they're not the same. You just have to deal with it. But in reality, they should be little machine screws. So like that. If that makes sense. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Hopefully. And then we come to this one, and you see. As someone's had this apart before in the past, that one's actually a self-tapper. Now these screws here are slightly different. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws along the back here, and then there are 2 screws here and here. Now these screws are longer than the other ones. They have to be in order to take up the difference in size for where it's going into plastic, and also it's also having to hold on the aftertouch board as well there. Yeah. So, right, there you come. Careful not to damage the ribbon cable here. There's a fair bit of length on it, but it seems fairly robust. Just be a little bit careful once you've got it to this stage. In order to get the keys out now, so you've got taken those 2 screws out there, you've taken 5 out across along the back here. Lift it at the front, and it should just come out. And then we have the whole keyboard in front of us. And hopefully, we're looking here. Find all the broken bits and all the broken sections. Right, and we'll deal with that in a minute. So that can get to one side. Somewhere inside here there is a spring that's been lost. As you can see, there's one missing there, and there's also a load of bits of plastic in here somewhere. And yeah, there we go, there's the spring. And the springs on the top of the keyboard are slightly different in length. I'll explain that to you as we go along. Now, in order to change out the floppy drive here, what you have to do is there is a screw here and a screw here, and then there is one here, and one here. If you undo those, this whole carriage then comes out, this whole metal section, and then there are 4 screws, one in there, one in there which hold the floppy drive in. And in order to change it for a GoTech or whatever, it's just a simple process of taking this out, taking those screws out, putting the GoTech back in position, and putting the screws back in and screwing it all back down. Beyond that, the actual assembly process, that's all there is to it. We'll deal with actually plugging a GoTech in at a later date. I buy my GoTechs from someone they come pre-programmed, purely because it's just simpler for me to do that. I can, some people say, oh, you can just buy a GoTech and do it all yourself. Do you know what? I can't be bothered. For what it costs, and the guy's providing a service, I'll just buy it straight. I'll buy it straight off someone else. It will turn up, already done. All I've then got to do is just put it in, plug it in, and off it goes. Perfect for me. And the extra £20, £30 it's going to cost me to do that, I can go to work for 2 hours, and it's, it makes no sense to me to do it all yourself, unless that you're into that kind of thing, and I'm not. So others will possibly want to. Okay, so now we're left with this. So in here, this is the encoder cables. Be careful when you're lifting it around, they're a little bit iffy. I will possibly do a little video on how to repair these encoders later, because what you find is that people lean on them a lot and they push them in, and when you're actually going to turn them, nothing happens, and it doesn't feel like there's any ident on it. So as it's turning, it's not going click 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 click. It's just sort of spinning freely, and when you push it down, put a little bit of pressure on it, then it goes, then it becomes, then it starts working. Now there is a fix for that, and basically what you've got to do is take them apart and just squash it back together. Because what happens is people lean on them so hard to make them work that it actually changes the shape of the case. And there's actually nothing wrong with them. They just need putting back to the shape they were in before. These have been done already. I do have another machine which I'm going to do. This one I'm just using purely to show the keyboard fix and how to do the backlight. Yeah, on one that's already got a backlight issue. This one doesn't have a whine. The other machine does. So we'll maybe have a go at trying to see how we can fix the whine on that. All right. Before we get too carried away, yeah, obviously make sure your cables are all out of the way and free and easy. On this you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws. On 2 of them, yeah, if we look at it this way, so the first one there and the third one, or the middle one, have a little bracket on them, and this is to support the key bed. Yeah, remember where they go, there and there. Yeah, there and there. They're quite simple. It's always got to go in the left hand hole, because on the actual thing itself there's a little clip. Now if we can see that. So as it goes in, the screw goes in the left hand side, the little clip goes in the right hand hole. Now if you're going to change your display, it may be a little trickier to get this all lined up again. So what you're going to need to do is reference it off the side of here. It's virtually touching. So if the encoder plate is virtually touching the side of the power supply plate, the PCB is almost touching the side of the thing. So if you're changing out a display, you may have to take your bezel off the front, which means that when you put it back in, it can sort of move around, and none of your switches are going to line up properly then. So my advice would be to get your encoder plate tight up against that, and then put this almost tight up against that. You know, like just like half a mil gap, or like just friction touching on each. Yeah. There's an earth bond here, which must go back on also. So What's that screw down in there? We'll get that in a minute. Simple as that. Once those 10 screws are out, it will lift off. If you forget to take your volume slider knob off, it will just pop off and it'll end up sitting down there. You'll just feel a bit of friction as you take it up. Yeah. Like I say, we'll deal with encoders on the other machine when I take that apart. But for now, that's how you take your W-30 apart. And I'm now going to change the backlight on this display and show you how you do that.